Hey, welcome on in.
Hey everyone. Oh, I see some working group members here.
Oh, Daniel, nice to see you.
Yeah. Hey Yoshi. Hey Annie. Hey
Hi, good
Daniel.
to see you.
Hey, good. Jess is here. Welcome, everybody. It's been 2 months. It feels like a lot longer to me. I don't know if it's just a busy world out there. Let's see. I see some new names in here. I bet you we'll get a few more streaming in. But thanks for showing up today, everybody. I think we have a good meeting, and thanks to the team, Lori and Serena, for bringing in, organizing our speakers and sending out the reminder for everyone. So this will be our 35th meeting. Why don't we go ahead and talk about what we're going to do together today while folks are streaming in. I want to encourage everybody to introduce yourselves over chat, even though some of us already know each other. What we like to do is have anybody who's new introduce themselves out loud. So we'll do that in just a minute. But just to remind you of the purpose of these meetings, we've been doing these for several years to connect national health and climate data experts and try to help us all exchange information and knowledge on priority tribal adaptation and resilience data needs, share tools, practices, ideas, and lessons learned from the field, and explore opportunities to develop and scale up solutions to address tribal resilience data needs, which I know we're all sort of doing in our own spheres, and we come together every couple months to do it together and see how we can try to partner or exchange knowledge. So we'll do what we normally do with our welcome and introductions, and then we'll go to member announcements. Our major meal of the day is our featured guests, our friends Emily Wells and Ben Hatchett. They're with the Cooperative Institute for Research in the Atmosphere Fire Weather Test Bed, affiliated with NOAA, to talk about the research that they did with Tribal Climate Health Project on understanding tribal resilience data needs. And we'll have some discussion. So that's the plan for today. If you're just joining, make sure you introduce yourself over chat. So who here is new? Who here is it your first time at a National Tribal Resilience Data Work Group? I see Jennifer. Okay, say hello.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Tudor. I'm a family practice physician and I work as the chief medical officer here in the county of San Diego in California. So very glad to join this group. Thank you. We have 18 federally recognized sovereign tribal nations here in our county.
Are you with the county, Jennifer, then? So you're with the San Diego
Yes,
County Public Health?
yes, I serve as a medical director. I'm an employee, I'm sorry, CMO. I serve as an employee of the county of San Diego.
Okay, lovely to have you. Nice to meet you. Who else is new? Actually, raise your hand virtually. Oh, okay, Zuzia. Did I say that right?
No. Okay.
Ah!
It's it's pronounced Zuja,
Oh,
um, but nice try.
I tried.
I am a student worker for San Diego County Flood Control. I'm standing in for my boss, Sarah Agahi. So let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Good old San Diego County, always here with our San Diego tribes. Daniel, nice to see you.
Hi, good to see you too. My name's Daniel. I am a geographer, currently a postdoctoral fellow at Johns Hopkins, and I work with the Environmental Influences on Child Health Outcomes Data Analysis Center, and have some experience working with the Navajo birth cohort study and other tribes in New Mexico, where I'm from. And so, yeah, very happy to be here.
Thank you. We met Daniel more recently through some of our wildfire and water data development work. Well, great. Is there anybody I missed that's new and wants to say hello to the group? Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Shasta, is there anything you want to say here at the top before we move into member announcements?
Glad to be here. I'm glad to see some new faces. I don't always make these meetings, but I wanted to make sure I was here for this because I'm really excited to hear what Emily and Ben have to share with us. And I think this has to do with our article that we're hoping to get published real soon here.
Yep.
And excited to be a part of that. So I'm working on my positionality statement, you guys. Right now, my position is seated with one leg up on my other leg, on my knee. But I don't think that's the kind of position that we're talking about. So yeah, I as far as our exploring opportunities or making announcements. I'm going to jump into that. Just that I saw something come across my desk having to do with, I think enhanced, that sounds terrible. Mortality rates having to do with wildfire smoke. I think Annie from CARB just sent that out. I'm like, oh, that's depressing. Let's see how many people died in the smoke. But it's data. So it immediately made me think of this group.
Did you see that too, Serena? Okay, cool. I have not gotten to my inbox much today. Wonderful. Well, I feel like I should do a little context setting just for folks. So Shasta is the executive director of the Paula Environmental Department. She is the lead on the Tribal Climate Health Project, and we've been at this for 10 years, and I'm Angie Hacker. I'm the CEO of Prosper Sustainably that helps implement the program here with Lori and Serena on the team. So that's us. I had plenty of announcements to share, but I want to leave the space open. What we do here at the top here is just sort of the collect from the hive brain, everything we should know about things related to tribes, access to data around climate change and health. So what do you know from your neck of the woods to keep us all updated and informed? And a particular interest in if there's any opportunities for us to comment or advise folks out there in the data making world on how to better serve tribes. Anyone? Everybody's thinking. Well, we have a couple announcements while you're warming up. I can just sort of mention, so we talked about the wildfire and water supply. So the Tribal Climate Health Project has its ongoing working groups and a whole grant helping us to support this effort of ours to try to make some data more accessible that is very difficult and persistently challenging for tribes, including water supply data and wildfire health related data. So we continue to operate our working groups there and we're deep diving now into providing the data sets that we think are most promising on those two indicator areas to 10 tribal advisors, so tribes around the state of California. And we've been having a lot of help from some of the folks on our working group identifying the best data sets, and all of it's going to amount to better data for at least 10 tribes, an update to our tool, and then a white paper so we can help instruct policy and data makers around how to better what's the status of wildfire health and wildfire supply data for tribes in California, and where are the gaps and how can we do better. So when we're done with that, we'll be happy to share that with you. This is the tool I just sort of mentioned, so the exposures, impacts, and strategies inventory. We've talked about it 10 trillion times in this group. What's cool is we are now ready to launch our Extreme Heat Online functionality that we just built with our friends at the Public Health Alliance of Southern California. And so we're very proud to have taken this Excel-based tool that we've built over the course of 10 years and now turn it into our easy tool is now easier into a web-based platform for extreme heat, which we see as a first stage. And so we would be welcoming anybody to join us for a meeting that we're going to have on May 26th, later this month. It's our TechX meeting, Tribal Energy and Climate Collaborative Exchange. They happen every month. This one's going to be on extreme heat, and we're going to be basically demoing the tool, which is all designed to make extreme heat planning a lot easier for tribes and to kind of spit them out data that is publicly accessible and turn it into a customizable report. So you're welcome to join us for that. We hope we have done what we're all here to do when we get together, which is reduce the burden on tribes of doing some of this data analysis and fact-finding work. All right, did that warm anybody else up? Who else wants to say something? Okay, folks are here to listen, although I see some people here who I know have got some big things going. So anyways, if you think of something, drop it in the chat as we go. Anybody else on the team have anything else to share?
I'd just like to urge people to look at the data that CARB just released. It's really interesting, and they have some amazing graphics. So take a look. Thanks. Jennifer.
Are you talking about what just got sent to Shasta, Serena, and some of us? Okay.
I just dropped it in the chat.
Thank you. Okay. Great. Jennifer.
Jennifer.
I was just going to share, and I'm definitely not the expert on this, but we have a statewide fish and game, and I think it's like the veterinary, the chief veterinarian at the state work together with our Office of Emergency Services here in San Diego County, as well as our tribal nations, and they put together some tabletop exercises for emergencies that include wildlife. So, I mean, we didn't use hantavirus as an example. I think it was a mountain lion, but things like that. And so how we can all work together and communicate when things happen adjacent to tribal land or on tribal land. And so it was really great to include our tribal communities of practice. I think the lead is a County of San Diego employee, but then also our tribal communities in that exercise. So just was going to mention that. Thank you.
Very cool. If you have a link, would you drop something here in the chat for us all?
Sure, I will find one.
Great. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Why don't we go ahead and move to our featured speaker? I'm going to pass it over to you. Actually, hold on. Let me context this a little bit because I just want to say thank you to Emily, who got lured in by us into a process a couple of years ago because we wanted to do some analysis of what tribes needed around data access. And Noah and these guys at the same time were considering a similar process. So we came together and they did a whole heck of a lot of the work here to try to really bring research chops to a process to gather information from tribes around the state of California on their resilience data needs. So thank you to Emily and Ben. Lori, what else do you want to say here to introduce Emily?
I get a lot of great opportunities in my job, and one of my favorite is meeting amazing people and working with them. Emily Wells and Ben Hatchett are two of those people. Emily's a behavioral and social scientist, and she has great chops. But I think my favorite part of working with these two scientists is that they came to the project understanding tribal data sovereignty and understanding how to work with tribes. So that was a really big step forward for me from in my other positions, having to explain it brand new to everybody. They've done a great job. I think this paper is really interesting, and working directly with our tribal advisors really brought out some information that I think will help everybody. So I don't know if Ben's here, but Emily, you can take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen if that's all right. Okay. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having us. I'm really excited to share some updates on this work. So this was a collaborative project, collaborative study that centered on environmental data and information needs of a group of tribal environmental professionals in California. So here we're really trying to synthesize the expertise of those serving on the Tribal Climate Health Project's advisory board. So translating their insights into actionable recommendations for the broader external community of data and information providers, as Angie sort of previewed here. And Ben, yeah, he's unable to join us today. He's actually attending a fire effects monitoring training. He's involved in some prescribed burn efforts. But he co-led this research, and we also wanted to thank our co-authors, Lori, Shasta, Bryce, and Isabel, for helping us out with this work, and Angie, of course, for really getting this started. Okay. So Ben and I are researchers with the Cooperative Institute for Research in the Atmosphere at Colorado State University, affiliated with NOAA's Global Systems Lab. The two of us make up the user needs assessment team. So Our research really sits at the intersection of social and physical science, specifically in the context of wildland fire, weather, and meteorology. And our role on the user needs assessment team is to really try to ensure that fire weather related products, tools, information are not developed in a vacuum. We want them to be more accessible, usable, and useful for a range of different end users of that information. So, generally speaking, we talk with end users to understand their fire weather information and communication needs, which we synthesize and share back to developers of that information, bridging the gap between operations and research. So I am a social scientist and I'm based in Boulder, Colorado, the ancestral land of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute peoples, while Ben joins us from Northern California. And Ben was a regional climatologist with the Western Regional Climate Center, and he began participating in these National Tribal Resilience Data Work groups in 2021, and that's sort of how we got connected with Angie and Lori. So this is a figure pulled from our work that's currently in the peer review process, showing how California continues to face shifting climate extremes from prolonged droughts to record-breaking fire seasons and atmospheric rivers, among many other things. And these extreme events threaten the unique ecological and cultural bonds of tribes to their land. While external agencies produce vast amounts of data and information, there's often a disconnect between what they produce and what is actually helpful for local tribal adaptation and decision making, communication, etc. Tribes possess their own knowledge, data, and sovereign processes, and here we're really aiming to identify how external information providers can better support tribal priorities with tools that respect and complement rather than replace existing traditional ecological knowledge and practices. Resilience isn't just about hazard response, it's also about the health and rejuvenation of land itself. And we're seeing a resurgence of tribally led restoration across California. So Ben actually took this photo on the right during a tule burn with the Tribal Eco Restoration Alliance and Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians. And we also wanted to share a QR code to this documentary that follows the Kuruk women's treks. So I really love this documentary. It shows perspectives on the meaning of reconnecting with land through prescribed and cultural fire. So these types of ecocultural restoration efforts are vital and a big part of our research with CSU and as NOAA affiliates is how can our weather and climate data better support the return of good fire to landscapes. So to understand wildland fire and other environmental information needs, we partnered with TCHP. They support tribal health and well-being by developing curricula and different capacity building tools like the EASY tool that Angie mentioned for helping tribes look at climate impacts. TCHP convened a tribal advisory board of environmental professionals from 10 different California-based tribes. And these advisory board members met several times a year through April 2025 to evaluate climate adaptation tools, identify different data and information gaps, and share best practices for using data within tribal adaptation and decision making. So their participation was voluntary and they were compensated and provided custom climate vulnerability data for their tribe so that they could use that to begin or update climate adaptation plans and vulnerability assessments. And Ben and I were privileged to facilitate one-on-one interviews with advisory board members to capture and elevate their environmental data and information needs and recommendations. Angie, Lori, anything to add on the advisory board here?
Not for me. Thanks.
Okay, Cool.
It says that was our first cohort, our first iteration of it, and we've continued it. It's grant funded, and it's something it was a huge addition to the Tribal Climate Health Project to be able to compensate and have regular interaction with a set of tribal representatives that are attuned with this work. So yeah, thanks.
Yep. Yeah, and this work is from that first cohort of advisory board members. And this research was guided by these three core questions. So, what weather and longer term conditions, hazards, and cascading outcomes do tribal environmental professionals in California actively address, or what are they concerned about? What information sources are used to develop their environmental adaptation and hazard management plans, as well as to what information are they using to communicate risk to tribal citizens, and how can external agencies or information providers better provide information so that tribes can more effectively access and use it, considering identified barriers. So findings that I'll share today are based on discussions with individual advisors who shared some of their experiences using environmental information to shape their tribe's adaptation and hazard management processes. And I'm just going to quickly go through how we conducted this work. So we used a semi-structured interview approach to allow for flexibility. So every tribe has a unique history and relationship to their land. So for that reason, we didn't really want to use a one-size-fits-all survey. We thought that interview discussions were more appropriate, and they also allowed advisors to guide the conversation toward their specific experience and expertise. Before we had these discussions with advisors, we refined interview questions after piloting it with a tribal environmental professional. The Colorado State University Institutional Review Board approved the interview protocol. And we also included a few components that we hoped would help protect tribal data sovereignty. So most notably, TCHP acts as the data holder. So they manage or really own records to ensure tribal advisor insights stay in the context that serves the tribes. In the informed consent process, we also asked advisors if they wanted us to seek additional approval from or provide additional information to their tribal government before they participated. So we've worked with Lori to conduct one-on-one interviews with all 10 of the tribal advisors in the fall of 2024. Advisors represented a diverse cross-section of leadership and staff from federally recognized tribes, again in California, all with experience in environmental adaptation and or hazard management. So these were recorded Zoom discussions that averaged about 45 to 60 minutes, and audio recordings were transcribed by TCHP, and then Ben and I de-identified and reviewed transcripts to ensure accuracy. So we then drafted individual summaries of each conversation to capture and synthesize our initial interpretations of various discussion topics that came up. So here we're showing an example of a portion of an interview summary, noting that this is we de-identified by advisor, name, tribe, and other potentially identifiable information. And we sent each advisor their respective interview summary for their voluntary review. So this provided an opportunity for them to confirm that we were accurately capturing their perspectives. And they could also identify any tribally sensitive or significant information that was then redacted from transcripts and subsequent analysis. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with qualitative coding, but this is a software called MaxQDA that we use to organize and qualitatively code interview transcripts. So we started with a few high-level codes based on our core questions, and then we also let new codes or themes emerge organically based on advisors' responses. So this screenshot just shows some of the different codes we were using to the left in the left column and how they're applied to a de-identified transcript using the software, just to sort of show, how we're working with transcripts. And this coding process was very iterative. Ben and I regularly compared our coding to ensure we were interpreting the data consistently. We then assessed codes and relationships between codes to conduct a thematic analysis, where we were able to synthesize themes or patterns of shared meaning that emerged across discussions with advisors, while being very careful to preserve their anonymity, both for themselves personally and for their tribe. So this process highlights critical unmet needs regarding the accessibility and utility of environmental data and information, really focusing on, what they're using from external sources. And from these insights, we developed a set of recommendations for external jurisdictions or, non-tribal information sources. And these recommendations work towards ensuring environmental data sharing processes align with tribal sovereignty, self-determination, and priorities while considering the identified needs and barriers that advisors shared. So from this, we have three overarching categories of unmet needs. The first is environmental hazards and changing conditions of concern to the advisory board members. The next is relational and resource needs. And then finally, actionable information needs. So starting with the environmental conditions and hazards of concern, this really centered on the wildfire and water nexus. So wildfires were described as the main concern or biggest stressors, with fires becoming hotter and seasons lasting longer. Receptive fuels in the fire environment were described to be amplified by extreme dry climates and winds, pervasive invasive species, and restrictions on cultural and prescribed burns. Also mentioned were cascading post-fire hazards, including air quality, water quality, and post-fire flooding and debris flow concerns. So for instance, Advisor 7 described how post-fire flooding has resulted in landslides that have damaged homes, explaining that this is something new to us. It was an event I had never seen. So we want to note here that many of the advisors are currently located in more inland, arid, and mountainous areas. So that's why there may seem to be an underrepresentation of coastal weather and hazard concerns, at least from this first cohort of advisors. The second theme focuses on projected weather-related cascading effects. So 9 advisors expressed a significant information gap regarding changing environmental conditions and how they drive ecosystem shifts. So advisors highlighted a concerning decline in keystone species and ecocultural resources. These losses ripple outward, impacting traditional food supplies, the sustainability of cultural practices, and economic activity. So these all pose implications for tribal health and well-being. Advisor 7 captured this, stating that weather and climatological conditions are, quote, definitely exacerbating the decline in keystone species, which are crucial to my place and our culture. These shifts are deeply connected with health and well-being, as well as critical infrastructure. So from a health perspective, there's a need for information on the intersection of environmental conditions and associated cultural and resource availability, as well as holistic tribal health and well-being. Concerning infrastructure, hazard-caused roadway damage, especially in more remote areas, is a major concern. And one advisor noted that tribal lands may have one road in and one road out, which can complicate evacuations and lead to supply chain disruptions before and during events like wildfires and floods. So the figure that we're showing here to the right shows the interconnections between different weather and environmental impact codes that we applied across the interview. So ultimately here, we're just really trying to convey how impacts are never siloed and they're very deeply interconnected. Okay, and so both of these needs informed our recommendation to deepen local understandings of how past and future environmental change compound and cascade to impact tribal lands and health. So one option or possibility to address this could be through establishing working groups composed of individual partners that develop initial understandings of causes and effects, which could then include the public or tribal citizens through participatory processes. Another option could be developing frameworks for documenting events of interest or known to impact tribes as they occur, and incorporate both immediate and potential cascading effects. So this information could be updated as outcomes are further identified and understood over time. So getting into our second set of needs on relational and resource needs, we asked advisors where they turn for data, and the most prevalent source wasn't external databases. It was tribal leadership and elders, other tribes, and tribal liaisons. However, the advisors did express a need for consolidating information within their tribe. So they explained how external guidance and training could be helpful for tribes, specifically guidance that complements, sorry, I just lost my train. that complements the environmental conditions, outcomes, and lessons learned over time. So some advisors noted how such guidance and training can complement oral traditions passed through storytelling and other ways of communication. And this would be helpful because many tribal staff wear multiple hats and manage numerous projects simultaneously. A few advisors also described how maintaining environmental monitoring and documentation efforts can be constrained by funding and resources. So advisor 3 noted that it's often easier to get money for new projects than it is to maintain what's already been done. The advisors emphasized the need for sustained funding to track and monitor conditions and impacts over time. But we also want to acknowledge, as Advisor 9 reminded us, that tribes monitor land differently because they see connections differently. So any guidance, templates, training, etc., that is adaptable can better reflect that reality. Moving on to the next theme, advisors also described various external information sources that they use towards environmental adaptation and hazard management planning. So this includes information from federal agencies like NOAA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Forest Service. However, many did describe an information gap here. Specifically, insufficient information sharing from neighboring jurisdictions to tribes regarding land management activities. So things like treatments, tracking vegetation loss, invasive species, etc. The lack of clear data and regular coordination on neighboring lands leaves cross-boundary fire ignition and behavior risk quite unclear and uncertain. So this complicates and introduces uncertainty for tribal risk assessments and adaptation planning if they don't really know what is going on neighboring lands. This also relates to the need for multi-jurisdictional co-management, where tribes are engaged early and as equal decision makers. A few advisors shared how building strong government-to-government relationships towards co-management of land can help, quote, get on the right path, not just for our tribe, but for every tribe throughout the nation. With this, though, we must be cautious. Advisor 9 warned that when funding requires partnerships, it can feel like diluting sovereignty to fit a Western lens. So true co-management should fortify sovereignty and self-determination. And this extends to advisors' call for tribally led prescribed and cultural burns. Advisor 7 shared that having the chance to manage land as their ancestors did, quote, gives us a portion of land and lets us put fire on it. I see that coming back, noting that to be effective, external jurisdictions must move beyond consultation and towards a co-management approach that really supports and integrates tribal stewardship cultural practices, and self-governance. And our final theme here addresses the need for tools that facilitate communication from tribal leadership to tribal citizens. So nearly all advisors emphasized that external data must be more than raw numbers. It must be interpretable. They expressed a need to know more specifically what it is that data from other jurisdictions is telling so that they can effectively communicate to tribal citizens, especially when guidance and supporting templates are provided to sort of complement that data. The advisors described how external information sources and training opportunities and templates can support tribal leaders' communications to citizens regarding environmental planning and impacts. So there's a few ways that they sort of described that external information sources could help them with this process. So the first is by allowing ways for tribal leadership to include visualizations like figures, drawings, photographs, etc. And four advisors described the power of visualizations in sharing stories. The second is to enable tribal leaders to frame information within their tribal context, touching on their tribe's values and constraints. So information sources that enable leaders to provide weather-related information, including warnings and communicating different protective action guidance to tribal citizens through a tribally relevant lens would be helpful, especially, if leadership can adapt that guidance to their own tribe. And third, tribal leaders, and sort of touches on what I just mentioned, but if they're able to tailor communications to specific audiences, addressing their tribe's vulnerabilities and needs, including things like rural residency, education levels, and different types of hazard exposures. So while some tribes already produce their own visuals and other ways of communicating, advisors expressed that there's a need for external agencies to provide supporting guidance and templates. So this is really about providing customizable tools that empower tribal leadership to translate this complex data into culturally resonant action. And drawing from these insights, we've developed 4 key recommendations for external data and information providers. So the first, we recommend considering tribal needs over the full long-range cycle of adaptation. So this means moving beyond initial grants to account for unanticipated costs and encouraging proposed budgets that reflect longer-term project sustainability. Second, we recommend sharing accessible, usable information with tribal leadership, particularly regarding neighboring land management. Third, it is essential to honor and include tribal ecological knowledge and tribal stewardship from the very start. So external agencies and partners are recommended to involve tribes during the incipient or discussion phases, not just after plans have already been drafted. So this is one step in transitioning from late stage consultation to co-management and shared governance. And then finally, we recommend co-producing training and outreach material, for instance, by budgeting for collaboration and creating adaptable templates for tribal use. And then finally, we have some of our identified actionable information needs. So the first is the need for historical and projected information that is both accessible and localized. 9 of the 10 advisors expressed that while external data exists, it is often too geographically broad to be useful. Advisor 4 highlighted the difficulty of gathering historical context, describing how researching past wildfires by digging through newspaper articles is, quote, just not easy. Advisors called for higher spatial resolution or finer grained data. And as Advisor 1 mentioned, it is currently very challenging to get projected effects for their specific local area. So the implications here are that localized data and mapping that can be more readily integrated into adaptation efforts, hazard management, and public communications would be helpful. So higher resolution wouldn't just improve technical interpretation, it also empowers tribal staff with the ability to share and have outreach materials prepared. Further, localized weather and climate data at spatially relevant scales can help reveal the cascading environmental consequences in ways that specifically address tribal needs and values. So that ties back to some earlier themes on just the importance and sort of information gap currently in understanding those cascading impacts. And then our final theme highlights the critical need for timely and local alerts from external agencies to tribal leadership. So specifically for wildfires, smoke, and floods. So while some tribes monitor their own air quality, an advisor noted that regional information often isn't communicated quickly enough or in a meaningful way to reach people who need it most. So to better anticipate and communicate regional reductions in air quality, this advisor proposed an idea for other agencies to email their environmental department information and warnings related to wildfire suppression progress and associated smoke transport, so that tribal leadership could post this to their social media pages, for instance. And a major compounding factor here is geographic dispersion. So many tribal leaders manage multiple reservations or citizens that are located in different areas. As they monitor rapidly evolving hazards like wildfires, they have to alert tribal members and often their relatives over broad areas, and this adds to their already busy workload. Finally, here, there were some noted technology constraints, especially in more rural or remote locations, that can further hinder situational awareness between tribal leadership, tribal citizens, and external entities. So one advisor, for instance, noted inconsistent warnings from electric utilities regarding de-energizations. So, for instance, public safety power shutoffs ahead of fire weather conditions. To bridge these types of gaps, advisors suggested simple and direct solutions, like having agencies or organizations email their environmental departments directly on localized warnings that can be quickly adapted for tribal social media and community networks. So considering these information needs, we recommend that external agencies co-produce training materials and guidance with tribal leaders for documenting environmental risk and outcomes. So rather than handing down templates, we advocate for adaptive frameworks that allow tribes to document their unique needs based on hazard exposure, vulnerabilities, priorities, and their knowledge in ways that really prioritize tribal data sovereignty. This can enable tribes to apply their knowledge and consider specific hazard exposures and vulnerabilities while retaining exclusive authority over all tribal data and outcomes. So regarding the co-development of such tools and templates, advisors express the importance of tribes maintaining full control of the narrative, the data, and ultimately whether they decide to use such guidance, training, or templates. Second, external agencies should assess how weather warning systems reach tribes, especially those with dispersed rural populations. So this could involve things like creating, distributing, and maintaining a repository of existing alert systems to which tribes could subscribe. And beyond just creating this repository, we recommend establishing a sort of continuous feedback loop where they inquire with tribes before, during, and after outreach events to identify what is or isn't working regarding communication modes, how they're getting this information, and timelines, whether they're getting it quick enough. And they could use this feedback to then improve timeliness and information content. And that is all that I have. So this work is currently in the peer review process. So it will be published in a journal here pretty soon. And I just wanted to thank all of you for joining today, and a very special thank you to the Tribal Advisory Board members for sharing your time and wisdom with us. I'm not sure if anyone's on the call today. And then, of course, thank you, Angie and Lori and the Tribal Climate Health Project and all co-authors for collaborating on this work.
Thank you so much, Emily. That was great. This was really an interesting project for me. And if people have questions, you're welcome to pop up.
Yes, welcome any and all questions, suggestions.
Hi, Emily. This is so great. I'm so excited about this, and seeing the quotes from the tribal advisors too. It just really brings it home because I don't I know I'm a co-author. I don't think I was an advisor though, was I?
No, but you did help us. You were the pilot, so we tested
That's
some of the
right. That's
questions.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the kind of the great thing about this is that looking at those, and they're anonymized, but I swear that each one of those things are things that I'm like, I could have said that. I could have said that as a tribal environmental director. I could have said that, and I'm really looking forward to uh, other folks being able to look at this and have the same reaction, and just feel happy that this is being acknowledged. And I think that we have opportunities here too um, to do more with this approach, with our advisors. And we are doing that with we have a wildfire smoke advisory group, and we have a water, Angie, is it water or Serena?
Water supply.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I do think this is a good way to move forward on getting this information, on all of the issues that have an effect on tribes and their health, and climate, and all the things. So yeah, just very exciting and great to see it broken down in this way. And also your slides are very aesthetically appealing. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
And so is her voice. I'm always like, ah.
Thanks.
Emily, thank you so much for doing all this hard work for us. And I'm thinking like, now what? All these agencies
Yeah.
with all these data makers we work with, getting the information in their hands. And I should know this because I think I'm listed as a contributor in this thing. But it would be cool if, since we have the data, to those specific solutions that were recommended, right? Like specific data gaps and information needs, to list those somehow. It doesn't have to be in the paper, but like that would be a great resource for me to check around to folks, because there are agencies and data makers looking to address the gaps,
Oh, yeah.
and build the things. And even Tribal Climate Health Project, right? This is for us, for ourselves, to figure out what we can do to better support tribal data gaps. So yeah, maybe just talk more about that offline, but just now I'm thinking about the now what.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And this was sort of a, I don't know, high level. Like I think in the paper especially, we were able to capture a bit more nuance with some of these recommendations. And there's just a bunch more quotes that I think would be helpful. So yeah, very excited to share out the newly edited version of that work.
The other thing I thought was really interesting about the process was using your tool, which I've already forgotten the name of, Emily, that helped us remove our opinions about what we heard and have it just capture what we heard. I thought that was really great, and it was nice for me to see the social science combined with other science to really give a better view.
Yeah, that's something that Ben, because Ben is new to social science, and he always recommends showing a bit of the sort of behind the scenes of what's involved there to make it as, I don't know if objective is the right word, but we really go through an iterative and pretty rigorous process of, breaking down this qualitative information.
Yeah, I remember hearing somebody talk about an area that I was familiar with. And so I brought a lot of my own, oh, he must have meant blah, 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 blah. And then when I read and saw what the tool did with it, I was just like, oh, so there was none of that stuff. That just came from my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
But it wasn't real.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that was really helpful. It was really helpful.
That's why Emily is the
Anybody
best in
else have
biz when it
questions?
comes to social science, qualitative research. So we are all learning a lot from you, Emily. We are going to have Emily and Ben come and talk at some point at a TechX coming down the line. So if anybody on the line is, you should sign up for that series. It's where we're bringing a lot of great information on tribal climate resilience out to tribes. So I'll be excited to work with you all on sharing this information. Anybody else have any other comments or questions for today? We can always end a little early. Nobody seems to oppose to that. Daniel, you came off camera. What do you think? Last word?
Oh gosh, no, I just came up to show my face. That was a wonderful talk.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks again, Emily. Share our thanks with Ben.
Oh,
Great
yes,
job.
thank you.
Lori really worked hard on this. I want to make sure she gets acknowledged that her part of this project. So, all right. Great to see everybody. We'll see you again in 2 months. If you have any other thoughts on
Jennifer,
topics,
hang on a second. I'll send you the web link.
if you have any other topics you'd like us to address here, we're open to ideas, and that could come from your own work. So, good luck out there, everybody, with your own work, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.